They go back to the others. "These people have come to hear you," says Philip. "It is not possible to speak here. Let us go to the synagogue. Jairus will be pleased." They go to the beautiful synagogue of Capernaum. Jesus leads the way and is followed by the procession of all the others. Jairus greets him and he enters, giving instructions to leave all the doors open so that those who cannot go inside may hear him from the street and square beside the synagogue. Jesus goes to his place in the friendly synagogue, in which fortunately there are no Pharisees today. They have probably already left for Jerusalem in full plumage. And he begins to speak. "I solemnly tell you, you are looking for me, not to hear me, or because of the miracles which you have seen, but because of the bread that I gave you to eat to your fill and without any expense. That is why 3/4 of you were looking for me, and also out of curiosity. And that is why you came from every part of our fatherland. So there is no supernatural spirit in your quest, dominated by human spirit, with its unsound curiosities, or at least with childish curiosity. Not because it is simple like that of children, but because it is maimed like the intelligence of a dull-minded person. And linked to such curiosity, there is sensuality and vitiated feeling. Sensuality, as subtle as the demon whose daughter it is, hides behind appearances and seemingly good deeds. And vitiated feeling is simply a morbid deviation of sentiment. And like everything which is disease, it needs and craves after drugs, which are not plain food, good bread, good water, unadulterated oil, the first milk which is sufficient to live and live well. Vitiated feeling needs extraordinary things to be roused, to feel the thrill of pleasure, the sickly thrill of paralysed people who need drugs to feel the sensation which beguiles them into believing that they are still healthy and virile. The sensuality that wants to satisfy one's gluttony without work, in this case, with bread which was not hard-earned, but given by God's bounty. I'll just pause there. The reference to plain food, good bread, good water, unadulterated oil, the first milk. We in the West are fat and unhealthy, prone to heart disease and cancers of various kinds. Many YouTube bloggers with huge followings talk about the need to eat healthily. And here we have our Lord just laying it down on the line. Of course, he's got a particular reason not to think about the health of the body, but to use it as an example to talk about spiritual health. But still, it'd be good for us Westerners, I'm not saying those in other parts of the world necessarily, but for us Westerners to pay heed to that point, even though it's a minor note of what he's saying. The gifts of God are not common, ordinary things. They are special ones. One cannot claim them, nor can one become lazy and say, God will give them to me. It is written, "You shall eat bread moistened with the sweat of your forehead." That is the bread earned through hard work. If he who is mercy said, "I feel sorry for these people who have followed me for 3 days and have nothing left to eat, and may faint on the way before they reach Hippo on the lake, or Gamala, or any other town," and he provided accordingly. That does not imply that he is to be followed just because of that. I am to be followed for much more than a little bread, which becomes excrement after it is digested. I am to be followed not for the food that fills the stomach, but for that which nourishes the soul. Because you are not only animals, which must browse and ruminate, or grout and get fat. You are souls. That is what you are. Your body is the garment. Your being is the soul. It is the soul that lasts. Your body, like every garment, wears out and comes to an end. And it is not worth taking care of it, as if it was something perfect, deserving every care. Again, worth stopping there and commenting. So, all those YouTube bloggers who have vast followings because there's such a concern we have for our body. Sure, we shouldn't go around stuffing our faces with donuts and cream cakes, and I'd love to do that. Yeah, definitely would love to do that. But we shouldn't do that. But that doesn't mean we go to the other extreme and spend hours in the gym getting all toned up. There's a balance. If we neglect prayer, but we focus on the body, we're definitely out of balance. And in this world of ours, we in the West, yet again, especially we in the West, are out of balance. So we have those who don't care about their physique and will go to an early grave, earlier than they should, because going to an early grave is not the problem. It's going to a grave earlier than you're supposed to, when there's work to be done in advancing the Catholic faith and behaving in a supportive way to the members of your community as a Catholic, in a Catholic community. There's that. But the other side, where we're focusing on the body, and therefore we're of no use, we're just effectively finely toned animals. I just make a point though, on food, and the miraculous gift of food. It isn't just here, in the reference to the feeding of the 5,000 or the feeding of the 4,000, which took place. We have actually, and they're not one event, which got mixed up. They're two separate events, and Valtorta's visions show that. That's it for anybody who's a skeptic about what the Gospels say. But we have our patron saint of parish priests, Saint Jean-Marie Vianney, who died in 1859, I think. He was, some would say, a deserter from Napoleon's army. He lagged behind deliberately, and then he hid. He had to hide, whether he was a straggler or deliberately lagging behind. Because if you are perceived to be a deserter from Napoleon's army, this is Napoleon Bonaparte, then you would be killed, hanged, shot. I don't know what they do with you, but they would definitely not leave you alive. So he hid, I think he was helped to hide, for quite a long time. And then he emerged and eventually entered the priesthood. And he was such a great priest, but almost lacking in education. One of the things he did was he had some children he was looking after, and it was a very poor area that he was parish priest of. He sent, in fact, because he was uneducated, he was sent to the most backwater of backwaters in France. It ended up having a rail line built there because of the pilgrims who wanted to come to see this priest. It shows you what every priest could be if they wanted to be. Forget modern trash. Just focus on what Saint Jean-Marie, your patron saints, focused on, which is the gospel, the Christ, the Virgin. And he was a proponent of Our Lady's visions at La Salette of 1846, by the way. That's another story. So, these kids he's got to look after. There's no money, there's no food. And lo and behold, when things were at their worst, a miraculous gift of food was provided. Can't remember the details of how it was, whether it was somebody who just left it outside, a person, or an angel, or whether it just appeared in the room at one point. But there we are. So God, as he says here, as God, Christ, says, God may out of mercy upon us work this kind of miracle. But by and large, the main thing is we work for our bread. By the way, that's why usury is wicked. Usury, which is the gaining money via interest on loans until about 1555, when Pope Leo X gave an opening for usury in relation to the Monte Pietatis, the Mountains of Pity, the charitable organisations which were organised by Catholics to assist the poor. But it got out of control very rapidly, because you know how it is. You open the door slightly and the horse rushes through the stable door and it's left wide open, and the entire bunch of horses just go. In this case, up to that point, there was an outright rejection of any usury, any taking of interest on loans. There were ways of getting around this which were deployed in the times leading up to this, especially when you have the Fugger banking house. Yeah, I didn't say that the wrong way. The Fuggers in Germany, powerful bankers, and the Florentine bankers in the Renaissance. Great pressure to endorse usury, but the church constantly spoke against it. And now, of course, there's no speaking against it. And of course, if you're young in London and other parts of Britain, you can't afford to buy a house. So how can you start a family? It wrecks society, does usury. And so, the business of getting money, getting your bread without earning it, is redolent of the curse of usury. It's an illustration of it.